I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome, everyone, to the Board of Commissioners meeting. It is Tuesday, June 25th, 2024. It's nice to see everyone here. It's nice, those of you that are joining via Streamline and computer. And with that being said, before I ask for a motion to approve the agenda, we do have item number 5 under regular business that we will be, number 6 under regular business that will be omitted, the South Dakota Game Fish and Parks Development. With that will be postponed, so I guess I will ask for a motion to approve the agenda first thing.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Landine, second by Commissioner Schmidt. Any discussion? If not, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Aaron's,
Yes.
Poppins,
Yes.
Landine,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Gibbon.
Yes. Next, I'll ask for a motion, board action to approve the consent agenda items.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Motion by Schmidt, second by Aaron's. Is there any discussion? If not, any public input? Hearing none, go ahead and call the roll, please.
Commissioner Aaron's,
Yes.
Commissioner Poppins,
Yes.
Commissioner Landine,
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Gibbon.
Yes. Let's move on to our regular business. Item number 1. Toby,
So this is a public hearing for an ordinance of Lincoln County, South Dakota, rezoning a portion approximately 104.17 acres of a property legally described as the northwest quarter, except lots H1 and H4 and Tower Estates and Tract 1 of Neiman Addition and Ponderosa Park Addition. Section 6, Township 99 North, R50 W, LaValley Township from A1 Agricultural District to I1 Light Industrial District, and amending the official zoning map of Lincoln County.
Toby?
Yep, thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioners, Toby Brown, representing County Planning. This item before you this morning is a request for an application for a change of zone from the A1 Agricultural District to the I1 Light Industrial District. Subject property is approximately 3,000 feet to the south of the city of T. As you can see on the current comprehensive plan, that this property is identified as an urban expansion area, primarily for the city of T. Subject property, as noted, is A1 agricultural. Total property is approximately 119 acres in size. There is a second application after this one that would rezone a portion of 5 acres just south of Terry Lane to RR Rural Residential. Surrounding properties are primarily agricultural to the west and to the south. There is a development off of Ponderosa just to the east. It is a fully developed, except a lot to the north of C commercial, primarily warehousing and similar type land uses. Terry to the north is an established subdivision. That subdivision was platted in 1993 before the county had density zoning. So the majority of those parcels were not rezoned to rural residential, but they are developed with single-family dwellings. Lot 5B, which is just to the north there on Terry Lane, was replatted into 2 lots and was rezoned to rural residential a few years back to allow for a second single-family dwelling on the property. And then the one further to the east on 27, or just on Terry Lane there, that was rezoned to rural residential. At the time in 1993, there was 8 lots that were platted for that development. They were split up and parceled off, but that particular one was platted after density zoning, so in order to build a house on it, it had to be zoned rural residential. Subject property, though, has been utilized as agricultural production for a number of years. There are no existing structures on the property. These are some pictures that you can see looking on the property. So we did receive an application from Mr. Nielsen to rezone this portion, primarily to be utilized for light industrial type uses. In the county, the light industrial district is a little unique in that we do allow commercial land uses within it, But the applicant is requesting to do light industrial, so they can also do some kind of light manufacturing or have the flexibility to do some of those land uses there. Anticipate that the applicant is going to purchase the entire property. This will be allow us to do, not a piecemeal development, but an overall development. There are a number of drainage challenges in this area. If you recall, a number of years back, we did receive an application to rezone a portion of this property to commercial. Lyle Scott was going to sell campers on the site. It was tabled by the Board of Commissioners, and Mr. Scott did go through a pretty extensive engineering analysis, did identify that existing development to the north, specifically Terry Lane, is lacking a ditch on the south side, as well as the culvert's undersized that runs under Terry Lane. So as part of this application, the developer, the applicant would be required, or has stated that he would work to improve Terry Lane and address some of those issues, but more importantly, would put a larger detention to the south on the property. This is a conceptual plan, so I don't want this to be seen as that this is how it's going to get developed. Subject property is under the subdivision authority of the City of T. So as I've stated before, this is step one in the process. Is the zoning appropriate for this area? Step two of the process would be the applicant working with the City of T to design or design for the development of the property to make sure that drainage and all issues are addressed that the City of T would require with that. So staff has had some extensive discussions with staff from the City of T. The City of T does not support this application. They feel it's premature development. They feel that they're approximately 3,000 feet away, but that's just a handful of properties to get to this point. They would like to get to their extend infrastructure and allow development to occur. They also have concerns with the land use. They view this as more of a high-scale commercial type development, interstate exchange, if the infrastructure would get from the city. But under the current comprehensive plan for the City of T, they've had a second comprehensive plan since we've adopted our comprehensive plan. They moved back on this area, so they do have this area within their major street plan, but they do not have a land use designated for this area. So it's been challenging to work with the developer to really identify what the appropriate land use would be for this area. Staff did recommend approval of this application. I feel it is consistent with the overall growth pattern of the area. It would be an interstate exchange area. The highest best land use for this would be this type of a land use. Challenging though, because it doesn't have infrastructure there, so we're going to probably see the development of it being more contractor shops, light manufacturing type land uses. But the applicant did have a neighborhood meeting with the landowners on site. As part of that neighborhood meeting, the landowners requested that there be some type of a transition or a buffer to the existing single-family houses to the north. That's why the second application before you this morning would be for the rural residential just to the south of that. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have for staff at this time. Otherwise, the applicant is here this morning, Mr. Chair.
Are there any questions for Mr. Brown at this time by this commission?
Okay, thank you.
The applicant is here, so please state your name and address.
Kelly Nielsen, 27297 Wetland Road, Nielsen Construction.
Go ahead.
Yes, it's a parcel that's available for purchase. We've been working with the seller, the people around it. We have been in a couple meetings with the City of T. Initially, they're supportive of it, so I was a little thrown off by them not being supportive at this point. I know the zoning's different than what they would like, but I don't know that that's fair to the seller, if it's fitting within county zoning recommendations. I think it has potential to be a good project. Homeowners to the north have had some challenges with this being developed prior, and I feel like we have a good compromise in making something work for them, as well as getting the land sold for the seller.
Are there any questions for Mr. Nielsen by this commission?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Kelly, yeah, thanks for being here. I know in the past, when the county's asked you to do some flooding remediation issues, I think the last time was like in Harrisburg, y'all did a pretty good job with that. So what's the issue here with some drainage issues, and what are you proposing to do with that?
It's not showing on this because we're obviously not to that portion of it yet, but we've estimated close to 30 acres of this 109 will have to be some kind of retention, is what,
I'm sorry, what did you say, 30 acres of what?
some kind of a retention, ponding, water backup. Yep. I mean, financially, that's all I'm looking at this point, is to see if I can still make it make sense. And there'll be between the property lines, we'll lose roughly 30 acres of sellable property.
How many lots are
It'll
showing?
kind of change due to what I just said. And this is put together with not showing any retention, detention, right? We're just taking it as if it was all developable. This would be best case scenario. But looking at it and trying to be more, we put this together 2.5 months ago. We've been trying to get some grades and contours from any information we can without spending thousands of dollars to figure it out. We're estimating, like I said, there'll be right there where it says light industrial, L1, the wording of that along with the canal will probably be roughly, like I said, 20 to 30 acres of retention, canals, ponding, water.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, with that being said, are there proponents, those that support the applicant? Would you like to come forward, please, this time? Okay, I guess then, any opponents, excuse me, we have one or not? No? Okay. Any opponents, those opposed? Would you like to come forward at this time? Again, please state your name and address and talk into the microphone, please.
Kevin Wheeler, 47022 Terry Lane. I guess I just think we're being a little too premature here with this. Like I said, the city of T actually does not support it just because they would like to have a little more infrastructure. I know the boards have denied some other rural developments based on the sheer fact utilities. Like mentioned, this development is relatively close proximity to T. They kind of also look at it, I believe, as more of a financial thing, tax revenue. Obviously, it's prime land. I get that because it's right by the interstate. It's also prime land for me because I'm looking it out my front window every day. You know, the drainage thing is the biggest thing, and I know we're not here to discuss that, but I mean, just so we all get on the same page, I mean, I do have, obviously, which one do I hit, Toby, again for that? Oh, there we go. I don't know if we zoom in on it again. Come out here, but I mean, obviously this was an excessive amount of rain, but the field has had standing water this entire spring. I'm glad Mr. Nielsen has finally realized that at least 30% of the field would need to be a retention pond. You know, you're talking approximately 27,000 gallons of water for 1 inch of rain per acre. That's approximately 3,600 cubic feet. Just a detention pond on that, 30 by 36 foot deep for 1 acre to hold 1 inch of rain. The biggest concern too I have is like, something's happened to the maps in the area because it shows a flood risk, and this is that area. All the engineers that have worked on it, Williston Lund in the past had to put in a circle there on Ponderosa because they couldn't cross Shriver's tributary because it was floodplain. Those layers have all disappeared from the flood maps, and I haven't really gotten an answer as to why. It's required to build 2 foot above those elevations. You know, this stuff's all available, and it shows the elevations that are current. I mean, the photos support it with where there's standing water. So in order to be above 2 foot, I mean, there's a ton of fill that has to happen. And I mean, I think, unfortunately, like I said, the lot layout that he shows of 49 lots is like so far from accurate. I don't think we can base anything on that. There needs to be a little bit better plan that would help support some of the drainage issues, and also like kind of work with T. Harrisburg's comprehensive plan also shows the area as some commercial. They've got kind of office, industrial planned, and some residential yet remaining there. I guess, yeah, like I said, I think we're just being a little too premature. I appreciate Kelly's effort because he's done better at trying to make people happy than any other developer has. A lot of guys try to steamroll it. I just think we need to maybe table and just get a little bit better drainage idea and give them a time to get a better plan for these retention ponds. Like I said, it's just a wet area, and I think it does a lot of good right now for people even further to the west because it holds the runoff coming down the road, so that's all I got.
All right, thank you. Any other opponents?
Hello, thank you. My name is Justin Weiland. I'm the city administrator with the City of T, 200 East First Street in T, South Dakota. Thank you, County Commission. The City of T is here today just to express opposition to this plan to rezone this property to light industrial use. I want to emphasize that this is not in opposition of Mr. Nielsen. It is just of this proposed rezone. Kelly is a community partner of the City of T. We've worked incredibly well with him, and we hope to continue partnering for the growth for our community of T with Kelly. The City of T views the proposed development of an excess of 100 acres within 1 mile of our city limits to be considered premature. Toby made several of the comments earlier in presentation to the commission, and we agree with those, with the comments that were made by Toby. Although this property currently is outside of the city's planning jurisdiction, the city is currently in the process of an update, a rewrite to our comprehensive plan. This comprehensive plan rewrite will include bringing this property into the growth area. Part of this comprehensive plan is also an analysis of the future land use of this property in particular, as well as an analysis of the ability for sewer utilities to be extended to this general area that's southeast of T. It's the understanding also that there's proposed development north of 273rd at this point on the Margison property. So that is under exploration. So it's the City of T's view that this interchange area should be looked at holistically from a planning and future property use perspective. It's really, when you look at the next developable areas along the interstate corridor, this is the next stop. And so it really should be master planned. And we really feel it should be value driven, property value driven. That 100 acres of metal contractor shops may not be the highest valued use of this property in the future, and we'd really like the county commission to think and consider that. These would be, smaller lot contractor shops with most likely holding tanks without city utilities, and I guess we have a hard time seeing the value associated with that. I guess just look at Baker Landing and look at, one orthopedic institute building and how many contractor shops it takes to get that value on that type of piece of property. It's our understanding, it is under the City of T subdivision authority. So the City of T, we will have a desire to work with the property owner to require that developer to build out municipal level infrastructure to our engineering design standards with curb and gutter, water, sewer, utilities, everything of that nature. Based on our experience, and I think the county commission has an awareness of this, is that converting these properties down the road is incredibly complex. It's very, very burdensome on future property owners. So that infrastructure needs to be placed up front. And we understand we'll be able to work with Kelly if this is rezoned through that process, but we want to be up front with that. We understand this is Lincoln County's process to consider rezone prior to these discussions, but we think it's important that there's acknowledgement of these requirements prior to rezone, and that these development processes include discussions about requirements and expectations. Since the city has subdivision authority, We also have concerns. We don't have joint jurisdiction, as we saw on that map earlier. So if rezoned to light industrial, there is a conflict between what the City of T's definitions of light industrial are and what the county's zoning ordinance for light industrial definitions are. So that's obviously something that we would have to work through. Again, the City of T sees this development of 100 acres of property without infrastructure in place to be considered premature. We ask the Lincoln County Board of Commissioners to deny the request to rezone and request the developer, continue to work with the City of T. He has approached us regarding this. We'd like to continue working with Kelly or any other future developer for this area. We really feel it's necessary to extend utilities to this area. Development of this size and scope, 100 acres, really should be considered to be contiguous to a municipality and, planned with, really good planned growth. So with that, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any other opponents?
My name is Terry Mark. I live at 47014 Terry Lane. I'm not in favor of this either. I almost got flooded out here a couple days ago. This whole water issue is just, it's a huge thing. I was at the Planning and Zoning Board meeting, and they narrowly passed sending this off to T, putting it in their court. And obviously, you just heard what they think. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Ira Sherman, I'm at 47008 Terry Lane. One recommendation I would say is, they're saying 30 acres would have to be a retention pond. Well, that would cover maybe the land that they're talking about. But on that highway behind the house, they added two 20-inch culverts. So we get so much water from the neighbor's property coming our way. That's also going to have to be considered in this situation. It's not only the land that they're going to develop, it's the water coming from the developments north of us. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you. I'll take one more and then we'll close and
Randall Haber, 47018 Terry Lane. I also oppose this. We have a nice little neighborhood there. I moved there to be out of town. I just see it overtaking our nice little neighborhood. Way ahead of time, if you ask me. It's just, there are plenty of other places to make this happen other than right in front of our neighborhood. That's my opinion. I'm not gonna go into the water drainage issue. That's kind of, everyone knows that. So anyway, my opinion. Thank you.
okay, thank you. I'm going to close the opponents. Kelly, is there anything that you'd like to answer in regard to some of the things being brought up?
I've got a couple of questions for Kelly as well.
Okay. Go ahead, Kelly, if you have some, or,
Yeah, the City of T opposing it's a little bit new to me this morning, so that's challenging, but I'll continue to visit with them in the event that it's worth visiting.
Is this the first time you're hearing that they're opposing it?
We met with them twice on the subject, once before we even made the offer. We had the city administration was there, as well as planning and zoning, like administrator, I can throw names out, but I'm trying to say with titles.
Sure.
And their engineer, and they wanted, the conversation was we'd love to have sewer there, but we even discussed as a group as me, Sandy, my teammate, and three other teammates of the cities, we discussed putting in sewer so that it was ready for infrastructure, but the comment was made that it'll probably take 20 years before they'll have sewer there, and they didn't want to have sewer in place that's just gonna go rotten because it's never getting used, so that's where we left off with it, so I apologize for not having that under control a little better with the city. Just poor communication evidently.
How are the properties to the east serviced with utilities, do you know?
To the east, yeah, it's all, Lincoln Rural Water supplies it, and then it's all septics.
Would that be available to you?
Yep, I visit with Lincoln Rural Water. We'd have to bring that a mile from the south up to us.
What are those shops to the east, if you know? It looks like they're,
There's to the east of us is Metro Construction has a bare lot with a lot of equipment, and then their shop and mechanic shop. There's a fairly large storage facility, and then Haber's got a
Truck.
mechanic shop / truck sales.
and then to the north of the Terry Lane Development, Tower Estates Development, it looks like that's more contractor shops or storage units.
All of the above, yep.
Okay.
Double H paving's there, some storage sheds.
Oh, all right.
Yep, some of that stuff, yep.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Kelly?
Mr. Chairman, I just have a general question.
Sure.
When the city, sir, when you say the city of T is opposed to this, planning and zoning passed it, correct? They opposed it? Right, yours. Okay, so when you say you oppose it, have any of your elected officials taken a vote on this yet? Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I guess, Toby, you made mention that it was more suited, T had felt, for high-scale commercial development. What does that quite entail? Or what does that quite mean?
I defer to them. Yeah, that's just what they've told me. Yeah, so.
Okay.
And I'll pull up once, I can show you kind of what the area looks like. I was gonna do that once. So as you're aware, this is quite a mixed-use development area. We've had a number of applications in this area. And so, again, staff does recommend approval of this. Planning Commission did recommend approval of this 3-2.
Oh,
So,
thank you.
yep.
All right.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
the night in which the Planning and Zoning Board took this under consideration, with all due respect to the people that live there, one of the issues that was addressed was if they wanted to have a buffer between on the back side of Perry Lane, and that the developer had given them an option of either recommended from our planning and zoning director to have a berm put in with trees, or else to have a row of houses that would buffer that from the development to the south. So there was consideration given on that, and everybody had kind of agreed that this would be kind of a viable compromise, if my memory serves me correct, so that the planning board looked that over and had passed the rezone based on the fact that Mr. Nielsen would allow for, or, and I think that's the second thing that we have here for the second reading, is for the construction of houses on the south side of Perry Lane. And that was what brought, I think, a positive vote on the rezone. So,
Okay, thank you for that. Any other comments or questions by this commission?
I just have a question for Toby, if you could come up. Thanks, Toby. So we rezone. The next step is all of what that's gonna look like, right? I mean, we gotta do the rezone before we look at roads and retention and all of those things. And that would be something that would be done with your office, correct?
No, that would,
Okay.
City of T.
That would go to the city of T?
Yes.
All right.
Yep. But, we would work with the developer and the city to make sure that the development proceeds.
Okay, gotcha.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right,
Mr. Chairman, one question.
yes, go ahead.
And Toby, this will probably get
Don't forget to
referred
talk to your mic.
Thank you. This will probably get deferred to Justin, but the follow-up on Commissioner Landin's question, it gets turned over to the city of Tees for their overview for the drainage and roads and such. And the concern is does the city of T have the infrastructure in place to do such a management of such a practice? Because if they don't do what is necessary to minimize flooding for adjacent properties that are still under our control, then it falls back onto us. So are you aware, or would the city of T be willing to make a comment if they have the infrastructure and the planning in place to do a development such as this out in the rural area?
Yeah, I'll answer that, is that we do work pretty close with the city of T, is that we don't have a formal joint jurisdiction agreement with the city of T, but we have an informal one, so they do review all site plan development in the area regardless of subdivision. And so, yeah, I mean, we work collectively with that. So the city of T will approve it, just like the city of Sioux Falls and the joint areas, that the city of T will approve a development plan. They'll plat the property, but we are the ones that are gonna make sure that when it's developed, or when there's building permits issued, that it's in compliance with not only their regulations, but our regulations as well. So again, we're, from the staff perspective, is that we're looking at this, it's good that this is a holistic look at this property. We've had a lot of applications that are piecemeal development. That doesn't seem to work in the county because we're not looking at all the overall drainage parts of it. But, this particular property, there is some issues there that we need to make sure is detention. It's lacking detention. If anything we've learned over the last few days is that we want to make sure that the interstate doesn't go underwater. And so we're going to make sure that, staff's going to make sure with the city of T that this is developed accordingly and properly, if it's approved with your consent on the land use side of it, so. Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. Toby, question. Whose drainage rules get applied here? The counties or the cities? Because they have subdivision authority.
So I'd answer that how I've been answering it all week, is that it's state law. So we're gonna make sure that as the city of T is that, and Kelly knows this, that development, once it's developed, is not gonna push any more water off than it currently is right now. And so that goes through the engineering analysis to make sure it's done. The only way we can do that is through retention on that site.
And do we use the county's detention retention standard?
I
Or
know,
the
we use
cities?
cities, yep, we use
Okay.
cities on that one.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. All right, if there's no other further questions or discussion, I guess time to entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve.
Second for discussion.
Okay, we have a motion by Landine and a second by Aaron's to approve. Basically for discussion first, I guess, is there any other discussion?
Well, I guess, just looking at this, I mean, my personal opinion is Tower Estates, that was spot zoning, and it got approved and it's there, and with all due respect to those folks, I think that developing the property to the south is actually gonna help out, because I know what Terry Lane looks like, and I know what the water does over there. And so I think this is, if anything, is gonna be an improvement to that area as far as drainage goes. So I'm gonna be in support of this application today.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Thank you. I said this a lot. This is one of those difficult issues where the county decides the zoning and the city has subdivision authority. And essentially, it's a bifurcated process, and it's not right, but it's what state law requires. But at the end of the day, the elected officials who have to make these decisions should have total end-to-end authority to make sure that we have a comprehensive, straight-line approach, both in terms of methodology and what the outcome is going to be. Because otherwise, what you get is you may get a county commission who thinks one way and who has a different set of concerns and thoughts, and then you get a city council who has a different set of concerns and thoughts. And specifically, what I mean by that is, I respect what the city of T is saying. They're essentially saying we don't want a bunch of contractor shops out there. They're saying they want something more high-end. Totally understand it. you know, for example, they probably want something more akin to what's going on out at the other interstate exit right now, further north, where there's, you know, it's a little more upscale in terms of, you know, what the properties are and who is up there, and it's not a bunch of shops, you know, a bunch of contractor shops. And I get that. And when the city of T comes in here and says, we want to maximize the value that the land can create, I totally understand that. And me, from a personal point of view, taking off my county commissioner hat and just putting on my personal point of view, I like that idea, right? I mean, I like the idea of maximizing the use of the value. But when you put your county commissioner hat on again, you have to balance the rights of the landowner with the rights of the people of T, along with the rights of the government in terms of what it wants to do. And, you know, if the government had its way, it'd just run people over every day, left and right, telling them, you know, we want this, and we want high-end this, and we don't want low-end this. And that's why I guess we get elected to these offices, to make these decisions. With regard to the interstate exit being here, you know, Kelly's done a good job with his developments, and we've got a willing buyer and a willing seller here who want to develop this. Apparently, it fits with our plan. It wouldn't be what I personally would, if I waved my magic wand, I wouldn't put a bunch of contractor shops at an interstate exit. What I probably would do is, like what you see at all the other interstate exits in Sioux Falls now, I'd be upscaling as much as possible is what I'd be doing. And to no disrespect to the homeowners out there, because I think many, many years ago when you all situated out there, you thought you were going to have a very beautiful, nice place to reside, and you were away from the city, and you were away from civilization, and you were kind of an island unto your home, and now all the growth and development is caught up with you, and it's starting to swallow you up. And if it were me, I wouldn't like that either, because if I bought my home out there, I bought it for a reason, right? Because I didn't want to get swallowed up by folks. Whoever approved a develop, and this is no offense to the people who are out there, of course, but whoever the government officials are that approved a bunch of homes to go in at an interstate exit, they made a supreme error. They should have never put residential homes at an interstate exit. But 30 years ago, nobody predicted the kind of growth and development or 40 years ago, whenever it was. My apologies, I don't know the exact timeline. But it's just in the last 20 years where the growth chart is basically at a 45-degree angle in Lincoln County. The growth chart is literally straight up. It's amazing, it's phenomenal. And now we got to make these kind of tough decisions. I am concerned about, and I've always have been, because this county commission doesn't have end-to-end authority over what the subdivision authority is going to look like, I generally look at these projects with a very skeptical eye, because I hit the green light on rezoning, but I don't know what the end result is going to look like, because I got to rely upon the folks in T to take care of that. And so, you know, the big problem I have here, just like I did with projects in Lake Alvin, when Harrisburg comes in and says, well, we're okay with it, or we're not okay with it, I've said the same thing. I got some issues and heartburn with it. What I am worried about, though, from a process point of view, as well as about just being civil with each other, is the developer, for the first time this morning, is just hearing that this big municipality, the city of T, is opposed to this. And I don't like this idea of getting hit over the head at the last minute. I'm not saying one way or another, but I don't like that from a planning perspective. We got the fastest growing county in the state, and we got the 9th fastest growing county in the nation, and you're telling me that 10 minutes before this meeting starts, the developer gets told that the city doesn't like this? That is bad planning. We don't plan growth in the 9th fastest growing county in the nation by coming up to somebody 10 minutes ahead of time and saying, hey, we don't like this. That's supremely bad planning. And so for that reason, not on the merits of whether there should be contractor shops out there or not, I'm going to vote against it.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah,
2 items. Thank you for your little history lesson there. Commissioner, I was on the board, if that makes any sense, at the time, and we didn't have the kind of zoning requirements that we had. And I think we voted against the original homeowner being put there because there was going to be some water issues. And I don't know if there was a court case or something, but it was eventually passed because I think Mr. Timmerman would know, because all the water that came down out of T and area, and there's been a real drainage problem, and I understand that, sir, for a long time. The one thing I think, to me, is you're not going to stop progress. You're very right, Commissioner Aaron's, when you talk about the desirability off of an interstate highway, which is growing from the south, the pressure of land. But I think what will vote for this is because we know the developer. We know his credentials. We know what kind of developments he puts in. You know his willingness to work with the municipality. You know his willingness to work with homeowners. So you don't have somebody coming in from out of state, buying a piece of property, just looking at its profit potential. You got somebody that lives here, works here, and develops all around us. We have developments all over our county that the Nielsen Company has done. And I think that credibility speaks loud, and that's why I'm going to vote for the rezone.
thank you. Anything else?
Mr. Chair.
Yeah,
Want to thank everyone that spoke today, thank the developer that's proposing this. I concur with Commissioner Schmidt that his history has been a good steward. The one thing that I will comment on is I know the land, driven past that for every day of my life that I've been able to drive. And the recent history has proven why I have to use common sense. And as opposed to, no offense to my daughter, who is a civil engineer now, there is a lot of things that they can try to tell you, but Mother Nature in the end will prove it. And this is a area which, until the exit point for Interstate 29 is resolved, so that it doesn't overflow and doesn't back up and all those things, I unfortunately will not be able to trust any engineer that will tell me that it can be developed, because we know that just too much of it stands in water when we do have substantial amount of rain. I do believe that in time, if that could be resolved, it should be opened up for development, but until then, the recent history should tell us not to vote for this. Thank you.
okay, thank you. Any other comments?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I do appreciate Commissioner Schmidt's comments. I do want to say for the record, I do think Mr. Nielsen is a reliable partner and has acted with integrity, and he is a known quantity, and he has fulfilled on his promises that he previously made to this county commission before. And he has created does have a very good track record. So don't allow any of my comments in opposition to this to be directed at the developer himself.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the zone, correct? All right, no other discussion. Sherry, can you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Aaron's,
No.
Poppins,
No.
Landine,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Gibbon.
No. I think you have an opportunity here to work with the city of T, and I would encourage you to do so. Thank you. Motion failed. Moving on, number 2.
And a second reading and public hearing for an ordinance of Lincoln County, South Dakota, rezoning a portion of approximately 5 acres of the property legally described as Northwest Quarter, except lots H1 and H4 and Tower Estates and Tract 1 of Neiman Addition and Ponderosa Park Addition. Section 6, Township 99 North, R50 West, La Valley Township, from A1 Agriculture District to Rural Residential.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. So same property, this specifically was after the application was submitted, the applicant did work did have a neighborhood meeting with the development to the north. There was some, what I'll call agreement or some type of discussion about having a transition or a buffer to what was proposed for the light industrial district. So the neighbors proposed that the neighbors and the developer proposed that there would be a buffer of 5 acres of rural residential. And so part of the staff analysis, staff identified that this is not in conformance with the comprehensive plan. Future rural residential in this area would not be a benefit to what the future development of this area, including what the city would anticipate this to be. But staff does understand that this was an agreement that was reached between the neighbors and the developer. But in recognition of what just happened with the previous application, again, staff would be concerned that if this gets rezoned, that another developer could walk in and develop this and could be more. Again, we've got an issue with drainage out there. It needs to be fixed with development, essentially. And so to address another issue that City of T staff was at the Planning Commission meeting. They weren't firm in their opposition to the application, but they did show that they didn't support both applications, specifically because of the same issues that they addressed, premature development, those things. But again, and there actually was a city council meeting that night. Staff did come to that meeting and did testify against these applications as well. Okay? Any questions for staff, I guess, that you might have?
Any questions for
Mr.
Toby?
Chair?
Yes.
Yep.
Toby, is this even relevant? If we've turned down the rezone on the property, which probably means that the purchase will not take place because there's no rezone, so what are we voting on for a person who may not even own the property that would give this? So I think this second reading, really, we should just put on hold, trash can, or do something, because I don't think it's relevant anymore at all.
So the planning commission did recommend approval of this 3-2, much like the previous application. Staff is in opposition, but staff would be in further opposition with this application today, because again, if the developer did walk away, another developer could come in and develop this and could create further problems if they don't address the problems that are out there. So would recommend denial of this application.
But we are approving land that he doesn't own. I mean,
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
Commissioner Schmidt, this is a independent application.
Yeah.
Although the previous one was denied, we'd still have to take official action on it, either up or down on it, just to.
Yeah.
Well, we can make that pretty simple.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So do we need to have proponents or the applicant? Is he here?
No, he left.
Applicants
He
left.
left?
City
Okay.
of T left, it looks
City of
like.
T's left.
So,
Mr. Chairman, I'd propose a motion to approve.
Hold on.
Just a minute.
Oh,
come to the microphone, please.
Come on
State your
out.
name and address to.
Kevin Wheeler, 47022 Terry Lane. I guess, like you said, I'm a proponent for it, given what was there. I know it's a little wishy-washy here because of what just happened, so I would say no to it, because it should be all or nothing. I'm in agreeance with you, but just what it was, and then a little credit to Mr. Schmidt. He's old, but he's not ancient. I mean, we just call him
Thank you.
seasoned. I mean,
Thank
not
you.
old, seasoned. But
Can you
those
explain
houses.
the difference?
no.
Yeah, I
Can you
maybe
explain the
babysat
difference?
you, huh, Mike? No. Anyway, like, the houses were built in like 2003, so they're really not that old. And then I believe the plan that was presented to you guys at that time showed this as a rural residential development, actually with like a lake out there. And it was the property owner's father who developed this, and their homestead was right there and got moved across the field. But, so I mean, just to clear that up, it was at one point shown as like a rural residential thing. So it was more than just that row of houses, and that's what was promised to the original owners. We moved out there in '09, so, I mean, I didn't see the full plan of that, but yeah, to our knowledge, there was supposed to be more houses, so I know things have changed, and I get commercial, and I fully support development, because obviously, jobs and everything like that, we need it. But, yes, as a standpoint, I would support houses across the road, given what I'd have to look at, but I know what we have, I would say no to it.
Okay, so you are a proponent, okay. Thank you. Mr. Nielsen, do you have any other further comments?
I have a question for
Okay.
Mr. Nielsen. Do you want to move forward with this application that you submitted?
No,
So you're withdrawing your application?
on the residential side of
Yeah.
things, yes.
Legal, can we, do we need to vote this down since it was scheduled for public hearing, even though he wants to withdraw his application?
Yeah, it still needs to be voted on, taken fictional action.
Okay.
Based upon the fact that it's before the
Okay.
board.
Thank you.
So what do you,
Just hold the hearing, Mr.
Yeah.
so right now, we're not voting on anything, is that correct?
We have no motion.
We're gonna
yet,
vote,
yeah.
but hold a hearing on getting
Okay,
proponents.
are there any other proponents? Okay, if not, any opponents? Okay, seeing none, then, commission, any further discussions? Okay, then I guess I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make an affirmative motion to approve.
Okay, motion by Landine, second by Aaron's to approve. Is there any public input? Any discussion? Seeing none, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Aaron's?
No.
Commissioner Poppins?
No.
Commissioner Landine?
No.
Commissioner Schmidt?
No,
Commissioner Gibbon?
No. Motion failed. Thank you. Let's move on to item number 3.
Okay, so item number 3 is a public hearing for the purpose of adopting the following supplements to the 2024 budget. A supplement adding $324,460 to the Highway Department for a plow package budgeted for in '23 but not received until '24. A supplement adding $50,116 to the Sheriff Department for a replacement pickup. That was approved in April, I believe. A supplement to adding $88,000 to the Equalization Department for non-budgeted group health insurance. And a budget supplement adding $16,900 to Buildings and Grounds for engineering.
excuse me.
Okay. First of all, I guess, is there any motion at this particular time or discussion by this commission?
So with it being a public hearing, we would need to do the proponent
Okay.
and opponent.
So no other action is needed at this time? Or are you looking for a motion?
No, you need the audience, if there's any opponents.
Yes.
opponents.
Is there any opponents? Okay, hearing and seeing none.
Move for approval.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, motion by Schmidt, second by Aaron's for approval. Any discussion? If not, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Aaron's?
Yes.
Poppins?
Yes.
Landine?
Yes.
Schmidt?
Yes.
Gibbon?
Yes, motion carries. Moving on, item number 4.
So we're doing the presentation of the post-election audit results. Lincoln County's post-election audit was held on June 20th at 9 a.m. We had 2 boards of 5 members consisting of 3 Republicans and 2 Democrats/independents each. The audit took a little over 3 hours to complete. Because we had an 11.83 turnout, we ended up auditing over 10% of the total ballots cast for Lincoln County's primary election. We had several observers watching the process. We audited Precinct 20, Democratic presidential race, and Republican State Representative District 16 was also audited. And Precinct Sioux Falls 215, the Democratic presidential race, and the Republican State Representative race, District 13. In Precinct 20, the State Representative District, there were changes, audited changes. Richard Vascard went down by 1 vote, and Carla Lems went up by 1 vote. In Precinct Sioux Falls 215, Brad Janker went down by 1 vote. Overall, the first post-election audit went very well, and we can't thank the folks enough that came in to be part of the first post-election audit. And we will be working to do some minor changes to make it go even better next time.
Thank you. Again, this is a presentation by the auditor. There's really no action that you want at this particular time, correct?
But we do have public comment.
Okay, any public comment? Please state your name and address.
You betcha. Linda Montgomery from Fairview, South Dakota. I was one of the counters in that post-election audit. And I have to commend both Sherry and Kayla, for doing it exactly as the Secretary of State had laid down. As I was driving home, I felt very good about it. Everything was very organized, everything was ready for us, which hasn't always happened in the other precincts, and so I have to commend those two for doing it. What I had what my concern is, I'm looking at over the weekend and through everything that was going on with the flooding, what did it accomplish for me? We realized that we can take a group of people and teach them to hand count, no matter, it's not the one that I would have used, but the one that we did is workable and doable, and people can count the election. The other thing, I believe it was for me to have some confidence in the machine. And I'm going to just tell you one incident. There was one ballot in my count that had a citizen marked one, however she did it, or he did it, ended up marking 3 ovals on the ballot. He or she took, marked one out, and what I'm used to doing when we're training for something else was, I asked the rest of the table, what do you think voter intent was? And they all agreed it was the 2 that were marked, and the one that wasn't marked, we don't count. And we did that, and then the rules of the post-election audit, which I guess I had overlooked, was that we are not allowed to do voter intent on this post-election audit. We have to think like the machine. What would the machine do? And we all agreed that chances are that whole ballot was kicked out, and so we corrected our sheets in that manner. Now, can we prove that? Can we prove we thought like the machine? Not necessarily. So that was my main concern of doing this type of audit. I'm not so interested in, I'm very interested in voter intent. Whoever that ballot was, we threw out all her choices on that ballot. I've been, as you know, working so hard to figure out how can I have confidence in those machines. And I thought about it, and we discussed, and we have discussed, I brought it up, doing 100% recount of the election. And then comparing the two. But what I hear people doing, like in a lot of the chats and a lot of legislatures say, but it's the machine that we have to compare our hand counting to. And so we're supposed to believe in that machine. So I'm going to continue to voice my opinion that I want hand count at the precinct level. The other thing I have done again is I just handed in a FOIA request for the CVRs, the ballot image, and the audit logs. Because in truth, that should be done with every election, and that is the way the public can see and maybe gain confidence in those machines. And that was my take from that ballot. And so how many more ballots in the other precincts or other races did that happen to? But I need to commend Sherry and Carla for the way that they, no, you did it. You did an excellent job.
You said Carla, it's Kayla.
Okay, Kayla, I'm going to have to apologize to you. They did an excellent job. And they did what the Secretary of State asked them to do. I don't think the results with the public necessarily gained confidence in the machines, is all I'm saying. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's move on to item number 5.
Hold on a minute.
Excuse me.
Got another talker.
Okay, yes.
Morning, Commission, Chad Skiles, Canton. What's the saying? The proof is in the pudding. The hand count, for which I was here for a while and watched and observed, the hand count proved the tabulating machines, everything matched. What more do we need? That's my question. The proof is in the pudding, folks. The tabulating machines work.
Okay, thank you. I guess now we're ready to move on to item number 5.
All right, so this item is a board action to approve the resolution dissolving cannot speak today, sorry, tax increment district number 7 of Lincoln County. The dissolution the debt will be paid off with the remaining taxes that are due on the second half. And I'd like to get it dissolved so that we can recognize the growth for the school, city, and county in this 24 payable 25 tax year. The resolution is in the requested action.
Okay, again, we're looking for board action, so is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, motion by Aaron, second by Landine. Any discussion?
Chair, Madam Auditor,
Yep.
just for layman's, what is number 7? Which project was that?
That was Canton, I think they call it Bidwell.
Thank you.
Okay, any public input on item number 5? Okay, seeing none, go ahead, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Aaron's,
Yes.
Poppins,
Yes.
Landine.
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Gibbon.
Yes. Next, moving on as far as number 7, Mr. Timmerman.
Good morning, Commissioners and everyone. I told you I'd come today and give you a brief synopsis of some of the happenings over the last few days, and tremendous amount of rain, more than anybody's ever seen here before. Started on Thursday, and as things went along, we had roads go under, fields go under. The property you just been discussing for rezoning, my son farms, and it's a pretty good lake. And it will go down, but we're going to lose a lot of crop. I've never seen devastation in fields like we have now. And some of this crop is not going to recover, so it's a lost cause. With the flooding concerns, most every road in northern Lincoln County was affected by this rain situation. Gravel roads, we had to shut the interstate down, which causes us as a county a nightmare because people do foolish things. We've had approximately 22 rescues of people that have driven into water, driven around barricades, gone on gravel roads where they shouldn't with semi-trucks. And we've had to rescue those people out of there because their vehicles stalled. And we're putting our first responders' lives in danger to accommodate people that are doing foolish things. I had a GF&P boat go out on 471st, just east of the truck stop, south of 18. 3 people were out there. One person with a brand-new pickup thought he could drive through there. When the interstate was closed, it stalled out, and they couldn't get out of there. So we got them out of there with a GF&P boat and so forth. We had another rescue on 44 near Cooper Seed Shop on Saturday. where a couple young ladies were in a Jeep, got disoriented, went off the road in the ditch, and you could barely see the top of the vehicle. Some bystanders got them out of there. One of the passenger was a paraplegic, and her wheelchair and all that sort of thing was in that Jeep. And so I said, we don't normally try and recover vehicles out of here once the people are safe. And she was really adamant that she needed that wheelchair, so I called, we called Eastgate Towing in Sioux Falls, whose owner happens to be a diver. And I asked him to come out, and I said, look at this situation. If you think you can get this out of here, we'll do it. If you think you can't, we're gonna leave it. He says, we can make this happen. So between a GF&P person blocking on 469th and Lennox Fire blocking the road on 17, he got set up, had a helper come with him, and was able to get it out of there.
Weren't you in the water, Harold, with that?
Me?
Yeah.
No,
Is that the picture I saw of you in the water somewhere?
no, I don't think so.
Okay.
Well, and I don't, but, so, like I said, we've had a lot of people doing foolish things, and we spend a lot of time trying to protect people from themselves, so. As far as now, in the recovery part of it, I've got the townships all working, and the cities will too, working on the new crisis track system that the state has purchased, to where they can go on a phone app and go out to a damaged site, take a picture of it, walk from one end of the damage to the other. It'll measure that for you, give you GPS points, and also a cost to fix it. Whether it's road damage, bridges, culverts. And now we've also got another form that individuals can fill out that have had damage to their homes. A lot of them have, even in rural areas, had sewer backups, water in the basement, and a terrible, frustrating thing. But when you compare it to what's happening in Iowa and down by McCook Lake, it's not a big deal. But to that homeowner, it's everything in the world. So we try and accommodate these people. To help homeowners, the disaster declaration is called individual assistance. And that's very tough to get, because if it doesn't do damage to the home itself, it doesn't qualify. And now we have this form that they can fill out and submit it, and we can have all that information ready should that declaration be made. I hope next week by the commission meeting to have a proposed declaration in place for you to look at and vote on, so that we can be a part of a presidential declaration should that happen. We need to do that here, forward that on to the governor's office, and then she forwards everything on to the president, and he says yes or no. And most of the time, they do accommodate it, so we hope that he will do that, because we've got massive infrastructure that needs to be fixed and so forth. I would commend the city of Canton for setting up the drop-off point they did at the high school parking lot. Gave everybody a chance to bring their damaged items there, and they're taking them to the Sioux Falls landfill, and the landfill's not charging them at this point in time. They're separating out some of the things that they don't want there and dealing with them here. And you have to commend all of our fire departments, because they've been working nonstop through the flooding, pumping, rescuing people. Sunday morning, we had a young lady get into the river south of Canton. Her vehicle was floating. She got out and hung onto a tree until we could get a boat there. So why she got in there, I didn't pursue to find out, because it doesn't make any difference. So, like I said, we're gonna pursue the declaration process. Everybody's in the process now of collecting damages, so we'll get them assembled. Any questions that any of you may have for me now?
I think, it's unbelievable, some of the things that happen, that you would think people would have more common sense, but they did. I guess, when calls come in, are you notified of all of those calls that have come in, or how does everybody find out, or directed who's to go where and so on?
That's our 911 center. Todd is here, and you need to commend that center for everything that they do, because nothing happens in the county without that dispatch center. All of our law enforcement, fire, medical, and a lot of city things, all our police departments are run through that center. Without that there, we would be severely handicapped. So it's the first line of everything happening. And I listen to most of the fire department dispatches. I don't, and I get a text on every one, so I know where it is. And so that's how the word gets spread out. I did meet with the Canton City Council last afternoon at 5 o'clock, and a lot of concerned citizens there thinking some things could have been done differently, but if you're going to try and build an infrastructure to handle that much rain at one time, it's impossible. And if it were possible, you wouldn't be able to afford it. So, you know, some things we can fix and some things we can't, but we try and mitigate things to a point to where it's livable, and hopefully we can do better the next time, so.
Well, I know I was up early Sunday morning and was checking things out as far as roads and so on, and I mean, there were people from our Lincoln County and deep South Dakota DOT already had beat me to it, so they were up all night apparently.
Yeah, there's a lot of hours put in.
You know, Harold, in all honesty, to you and 911 and our sheriff's department and our fire department, we owe you a tremendous amount of gratitude and indebtedness for your dedication. Because I know there was no sleep. I know there was just long hours. And to know the safety that you guys and gals all provided, thank you is inadequate. But it just goes to show you how fortunate we are in this county to have such dedicated first responders that reacted in such a fashion. All the firemen and all of that kind of stuff. I don't know that the public really takes the time to understand the amount of hours and commitment and self-sacrifice that goes into this thing, and how in some cases you put your own self in peril. So like I say, thank you is a word we use, but it is too small to really encompass all the things that you've done. So from my vantage, Harold, I just say thank you. You set the bar pretty high.
Yeah.
You're very welcome, so, and please, get to our first responders who are mostly volunteer, and tell them, thank you. Tell Todd thank you for what his staff did through all this with water running in their office. And in my office, it's a mess. Smells like a fish hatchery in there, so.
In my
Got
basement too.
Part of my stuff back in there so I can function partially, but we need to do some more work there. And John and the staff have tried to fix that a few times, but it's, when you get that much water at one time, you can't manage that all, so. Hopefully we rip the carpet out and put some tile in there so we can mop it up easier.
So I'm guessing you're recommending approval of the fireworks display?
Yes. Item number 7.
Well, and I do have to leave here pretty quick. I got a meeting I can't miss. And I delayed that part of it. But yes, Mark has been very responsible for all his firework plans that he brings forth. And sorry, I spoke a little out of turn here, but I do have to leave, so.
You're fine.
Understood.
Good enough. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you like to make that a motion?
Yeah, that's a motion.
Second.
Okay, motion by Landine, second by Aaron's to approve the fireworks permit. Any public input? Okay. Nope, we have a public input, yes.
I'm Linda Montgomery from Fairview, South Dakota, and I was going to save this for public comment, but since he's already talked about it, we have the best people in Lincoln County. I'm from Fairview. I'm so proud of our fire department, the lives they saved, along with Canton, and basically all around Lincoln County. We need to praise not only the volunteers, our community. It's sad that something like this has to happen, but when it does, when we have a community that comes together and supports each other, my granddaughter is a female wrestler, and the coach said, get down here and start filling sandbags, and they did. And all these groups were there, all these kids were pitching in. We just have to be proud of Lincoln County. It was wonderful. Thank you.
All right, we have a motion to approve the fireworks permit. And a second. No other discussion. Sherry, call the roll.
Commissioner Aaron's,
Yes.
Poppins,
Yes.
Landine,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Gibbon.
Yes, motion carried. Item number 8, board action. Terry?
Morning, Commission. The item I have before you today is, it's something we brought up, had on the agenda for you back in December, I believe. And at that time, we were relinquishing, you guys approved to relinquish a grant for the Hudson Bridge down there. And basically what we did is we were with just having the minutes from the meeting and your approval, they were able to relinquish it. We were able to get a grant application in again for January 2nd of this year, which we were awarded. So basically, this is the agreement to terminate the agreement that we had.
That we already terminated.
Yes. So this is just ensuring that the chair
Paperwork's
can
in order.
sign this, so yes.
Very good.
Terry, I know we're here to talk about the agreement, but something I want to find out. What's your assessment of the county roads after the flood?
Well, so far, we have a lot of shoulder damage where we had water over the roads, so we'll have a lot of shoulder repair to do. Right now, the big item that we have is Lake Elvin. It topped over on County Road 135, 480th Avenue up here again. And it washed out that entire east shoulder out there again, so that's pretty much straight up and down. That's probably gonna be the largest cost so far. Again, we're starting to do assessment on bridges. It's on township roads. I know we have one bridge on County Road 140. We're washed out behind the abutment. It's about half a lane. Another spot we had is 2.5 miles north of town up here by the box. We had half a lane wash out near a box culvert up there. Again, these are roads that are currently closed, but otherwise, a lot of the other things have been opened so far. Water's going down, receding, and again, a lot of, we're pretty lucky, I think, so far. We just have a lot of shoulder damage and then just debris buildup, that we'll have to be cleaning out at culverts, so. But we've started, like Harold said, we've started, doing our assessment on our supposed FEMA sites for the crisis track. We started that assessment today. We'll be starting to do repairs on some of the gravel roads and some of the FEMAs. As soon as we can get the assessments done, we'll start repairs on those items. So overall, I think so far we fared pretty well. Just a lot of we'll probably need a lot of dirt. And one other significant thing that happened was, and we'll probably have something on the agenda next week. But we had the pit down in Fairview, our gravel pit down there. River came up so high it backflowed and filled up our gravel pit down there. Again, we don't use that for gravel anymore, but we have other materials down there. We had a loader sitting down there, and the loader got flooded out. So not sure. I think the waters went down, but not in the pit. So we'll have to evaluate how we're gonna, if we'll be able to use that loader again. Like I said, it was halfway up on it. So I guess that's still to be determined. I think we're looking to do a rental unit here. We'll probably have some on the agenda for next week, so.
It appears that roads that had areas where the water went over, the south side of the east-west roads and the east side of north-south roads, it just washed away. It's just like there's 2 feet of dirt. It looks like we're gonna have to fill in a lot of areas.
I think a lot of that shouldering, we'll probably end up putting dirt in there, but we're gonna have to try to find some clay somewhere. I know we got the pile out the shop. Right now, that's pretty wet yet. And maybe we can dig into it and find some drier stuff to start using on some of those repairs, but as far as the Lake Alvin one, that structure up there, or the road over there, that's probably gonna be, we'll have to probably get a contractor in to do that. So we did, I think the last 2 times it washed out, we did, and that's gonna be fairly significant.
Is that one worse than before?
It's wider than it was before. Yes.
It's dangerous. Like Terry says, it's a straight drop down. It's what, Is it all the way up to 50 feet maybe? 35 to 50 feet?
It kind of ledges, you
Yeah.
know, but there are, I think the first initial one is at 8 to 10 feet, 12 feet is the first drop, and then it kind of ledges, you know. And that's what we had before, back in 19, I think we had it. I know maybe it was 13 or 14. I think this will be the fourth time
Yeah.
that is washed out. So, but this time it affects wider. It's a lot longer than it was before. And again, that's just probably because the flow of water. We had more flow coming in. I mean, there was so much water coming over that it eroded out a wider area. So, but on the good side, it's we just put that structure in on the Lake Elvin on 110 last year. That's a 6-barrel box we put over there. That held in really well. I mean, we had probably 4 or 5 feet of water across that road, and the box is good. The only thing we had gravel loss on the shoulder on that. So.
Good.
But,
Okay, so we're looking there again for a motion, board action.
Move for approval to terminate the our agreement with the Department of Transportation, South Dakota
Second.
DOT.
Motion by Schmidt, second by Aaron's. Any public input? If not, no other discussion, call the roll.
Commissioner Aaron's,
Yes.
Poppins,
Yes.
Landine,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Gibbon.
Yes. Item number 9, Steve Rasmussen.
Steve Rasmussen, your Commission Administrative Officer. We have surplus property back in May that was listed with Bender Commercial, and we received one offer. This is from the tenant that the county is leasing to, Philip Woolman. He's made a full price offer based off of our appraisal, and his offer is non-contingent cash. He is waiving inspections and any due diligence. And he would be able to close within 30 days.
Okay.
Any questions about the offer?
As far as those that might be listening online, what description, what piece of property is this?
So the parcel ID is 250 15 200, and this is located on Highway 18. It's about 4.4 acres. And in the listing agreement, because Mr. Woolman had expressed interest in acquiring the property since he's leased it from us for so many years, we did get Bender Commercial to waive any buyer commissions if he was a buyer of the property.
Okay,
Move to approve.
Second.
okay, motion by Aaron, second by Landine to approve. Is there any public input? Any discussion by this commission? Not, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Aaron's,
Yes.
Poppins,
Yes.
Landine.
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Gibbon.
Yes. Before we go to the budget work session, I'll go ahead and ask for public input on matters that aren't on the agenda. Seeing none. Commissioners, any commissioner reports?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to say a couple things about the flooding and the work of some county employees who I want to publicly praise for the work they did. First of all, Harold Timmerman, that man, he did the work of 10 men. And I really, I was driving around and so was Commissioner Schmidt, and we were talking to each other on this weekend, and Harold Timmerman went in there. He said he wasn't in the water. He was.
He was in the water.
We have the photographic proof. And he went in after that lady who was a paraplegic and she had her wheelchair in there. He didn't have to do that, but he decided to get the folks from Eastgate Towing, and he told me this story the other day after it happened. And I think he really helped that lady out because she was not from around here and she needed that wheelchair in order to, obviously in order to live her life. And so I want to thank him not only for that incident, but for all the work that he did. And next person I want to recognize is John Rombo. I was up in court on Friday afternoon, and I called John and I said, "What's going on?" He's like, "Well, it's flooding." and came down here. I brought my son. We were here on Friday night, and we were walking around in the sheriff's department down there, and yep, there was water all over the place. And just so, for those folks who don't know, there was a sheet of water behind us here in Jack Fox Park that basically, it was like a little tsunami, and it just overtook this courthouse. And I think the courthouse fared fairly well, you know, all things considered. But John and Brandon did a lot of quick work in order to clean up all the water that was coming in, and Drew's office got destroyed over there, and they did a great job of making sure that the courthouse is still habitable. And then some folks working in the dispatch office, thanks to their quick work, they took a bunch of sandbags here and they filled them up and they put them in front of the sheriff's office door on the west side sheriff's office door. And, because otherwise, that whole lobby would have been full of water if they didn't do some quick action and quick thinking. I want to thank the sheriff's department. Those guys were putting a lot of hours in, and, you know, they were, it's like somebody said here earlier today, it was that great personal risk to themselves. You know, we had an incident here the other day with one of the deputies, and thankfully, he's okay, but that was in service of trying to rescue someone. And good for, you know, I want to thank that deputy as well as the department for the work they did. Terry, I want to thank the work of you and the highway department. I saw Jared at probably, 7:30 a.m. on Highway 135 there at Lake Alvin. He was out there working pretty hard. And then the folks from Game Fish and Parks were right there guarding the road, and they had their boat behind them, so I knew it was pretty serious. And they were working very closely with the folks in the highway department to get all those signs up there. Because unfortunately, here in Lincoln County, if somebody could drive their car across 5 feet of water, they would, okay? Let's just be honest about it. If people even drive around those signs, for crying out loud. And I think it's thanks to the people in the highway department for putting regular motorists on notice that you got to turn around. Because most of the time they don't even want to turn around. They'd rather save 5 minutes than save their own life. And that's unfortunate. But thanks to the highway department, a lot of good notice was given to people on what to do and where to go. And then 6 o'clock that night, I was down in Fairview. I was down in Linda Montgomery territory there. And I don't know, is she still there? I can't see her. Their fire department had the Fairview Bridge closed there, and I think they just strung up a bunch of trees and logs and threw them across the road and said, don't go past it. So they were doing good work, too, to make sure folks knew what to do. And, you know, and then the last thing I want to say is, unfortunately, we did have a death, and it was from a gentleman who lives down by Lake Alvin, and he's the fella that owned that longtime farmer down there who owned that dairy. It's where those big blue American Harvester silos, that's him. That's his farm down there. And it's unfortunate, but and we pray for him and his family, of course. But, you know, we got to make sure that we're following those road signs, and we got to make sure we don't go around them. I know people don't see any water coming across the road anymore, but like I said to Terry, last night I went to Dennis Slack's house. He's the fella that lives right there, and I think a lot of folks in the audience probably know Dennis. He lives right there on Highway 135. I knocked on his doors, and then you got Robertson, and then you got the O'Connors. They all live right there. And while I was talking to all those folks, there were probably a dozen cars that went past the road closed signs. All because, and I'll just tell folks this, that ledge on Highway 135, I know, Terry, you're saying 8 or 10 feet, but when you go from road level all the way down to where gravity is going to stop you, it's 40 feet probably. It's 40 feet down to those culverts. And by all rights, we probably should have some type of side barriers and aircraft cable put on the side of that road right there in the future. Now, whether that happens or not, I don't know. But that is a potentially catastrophic impact somebody could have if they went off the road there. So I just hope people follow those road closed signs. until we do some kind of structural integrity test and figure out what's going on there. But I think long story short is, a lot of folks pulled together and did what they were supposed to do, and we're all going to be better because of it. Just the last thing I would say, I went to Dwayne Stahl's house last night, and he said something really good to me. Dwayne's development, he lives on Reynolds Place, and his road washed out, and it trapped 5 families behind the washed out culvert back there, and that happened on 6 o'clock on Saturday morning, and they didn't have any way to get out until Monday night at about 6 p.m. last night. And Dennis said something really interesting to me. He said that it was a chance to get closer to the neighbors in the neighborhood, because before that, he necessarily didn't feel as close. And now he feels like the neighborhood, I think what he said to me is, we all pulled together and got it done. So I'm glad that there is a little bit of silver lining to all of this. So with that, I'll just say thank you to everybody that did the work over the last weekend.
Thank you. Is there any other commissioners that want to report on anything? If not, I know we do have executive session, but we have a budget work session, and I know, Steve, none is your area, and I know originally we were going to take parts of the budget of the sheriff and the jail, 911, state's attorney, and EMS, and I understand the sheriff and the state's attorney are gone today, so we'll focus primarily on 4-H, the airport, building is ground, highway and weed, and of course some road and bridges. Before we start, I think we should take a 5-minute break. So it's 10 o'clock now. Let's reconvene at, it's 10:01. Let's reconvene at 10:06. I guess Steve and Paul.
I can introduce it.
And we'll begin, I understand, with the weed board.
Yeah, so this is just a chance. You guys have all the information. The department heads don't need to go through everything. If you have questions on anything they've asked for, now is your chance to ask them. If there's anything the department head would like to highlight, they can bring that up to you. So pretty much, we don't have to go super in-depth with everything. Just whatever questions you may have, any concerns, or anything you want clarification on. The order we'll do today is we'll do highway. We'll have Terry Foyko first. Airport, we'll have Dave Myers, and then John Rombo from Buildings and Grounds. And then we will call Wendy Sweeter from 4-H, who had things rescheduled due to flooding. So, but she will be available by phone.
Okay,
Thank you. So,
okay. Go ahead, Sherry.
All right, the first one we'll do, it's, since it's gonna be simple, I would think, would be the weed control budget. Not much of a change on that. The bulk of this budget is gonna be for chemical again, we have $51,000 for that. And then capital outlay is $2,500, and that's for, updating sprayers, or sprayer machines, the systems, electronics, so.
And we're really pretty much in line with last year on that, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, just slightly higher, and that could be because of wages and benefits, because we have, so the weed, I guess, the weed foreman, supervisor, weed foreman, I guess, weed lead, I think is what we call him now, but, so 6 months of his salary comes out of the weed budget and 6 months out of highway. Because he comes over and helps highway sometimes, and then we also have another guy from highway that comes over there and helps him, and then his salary is the same way, so his is 6 months out of highway, 6 months out of weeds, so. Questions on the weeds?
I guess that is my liaison. So I can concur. I think we've tried to keep everything pretty much in line as far as costs. And of course, chemical seem to never go down. So it's good because I'm sure with this flooding, we'll have our share of weeds again in a lot of waterway areas, ditches that turn into our county ditches and so forth. So are there any questions for Terry on the weed budget? All right, let's move on then. What's the next one?
Next one is highway.
Highway, okay?
All right,
And
so-
I know I had, let's see, highway was on page 36 of your other one. I'm not sure what page it is in your bulletin that you received today.
So I'll wait for you to find your spots.
We got this road and bridges.
Yeah, is it road and bridge fund? Is that what
Yes.
you're?
Yes,
Right? Isn't that what you're
yes,
talking
that'll-
about?
Yes, that'll be
Okay.
correct. Yes.
Yep. We got her.
Okay.
Got her? All right.
Mr. Ernst. Got it. All
So-
right, Tiffany.
If you remember, just an FYI, remember that the budget number on this is an average of the last 4 years. So I think our bottom line is 6 million something, I believe, is what it's 6.8, something like that, I mean, something like that is what it's totaled up to, 7 million.
Terry, do you need to adjust up for this rain event?
At this time, I don't think I will, because I'll have, like I said, I have other projects for this year that aren't gonna happen again. I'm hoping that most of our repairs, I'm hoping to get 80% of them done this year, so it'll be pretty minimal next year. So I would think that most of our repairs can come out of this year's and we'll be fine.
And have you budgeted in anything for the highway expansion project for next year? I mean, is it in there?
For the offices,
Yeah.
no.
Is that,
When, question for you. So when when you have these flooding events and they get declared a disaster or whatever, and obviously we don't know if that's happened yet or not, but we'll have to find out. What's the typical cost share on that?
I believe, like, through the state, through FAS roads, which is federal assist aid or federal aid routes, those are gonna be, is it 80-20 maybe? And then FEMA might be 75-25, I believe. So we would get reimbursed for up to that 75%.
And
you
that's
know.
for any of the damages that occurred
Correct.
because of
Any
flooding?
sites that we would have listed.
Okay.
Now, on the ER sites, ER is through the state. Again, those are gonna be on federal aid roads. That's gonna be, the site damage has to be a minimum of $5,000 to qualify. So we might have a lot of these sites where it's just shoulder repair. We may not get to the cost on them to get those, that funding back. Just because a lot of shoulder repair stuff might only be $3,000, $4,000. You know, and that's gonna include materials, equipment costs, labor costs, to do the repair, so.
And then basically any kind of cost recovery or reimbursement, that may take a year or two to get, right? Or what?
For the ER stuff, that would be fairly quick. Typically, that'll be, we're in June. It's possible to get some of our ER money back if we have some sites this year. It's possible to get that back this year, maybe, late.
All right.
The FEMA stuff could be a little different. Again, I'm just going off of 2019 when we had that event. We were receiving money, typically 8 to 9 months afterwards, but even up to a year and a half afterwards. So the FEMA stuff could be a little longer, but I know that, I know Harold has been working with the state and the state's been working with the feds, and I think that they're trying to streamline the whole process with this Crisis Track app. So hopefully we won't have to go through what we did in 19. I mean, there were times where we submitted all our information to them. We had to fill out all the paperwork, submit it all to them. And for some reason, if you had changed the manager up there or something with FEMA, then you have to submit everything again. Or if you had one little number wrong, you'd have to get it all back. And then you have to fix it, correct the incorrection that's wrong, and then you have to resubmit it. So it was a really back and forth. I mean, there were times we had to send documents, like the same documents to them 3 times. and 4 times. You know, so hopefully with this new way they have to put in for the FEMA stuff, with this app, it'll be, once we go out, we do a site assessment on a damaged site. We take pictures, it uses GPS point where you are, you can measure out your damage, you put all the information in, you submit it, it uploads it, and it uploads it right to the state, which, and then forwards goes to FEMA. So hopefully it'll be a lot cleaner process than back in 19, so.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate that, and I think folks do too. As it relates to this year, or the next coming year budget though, for any kind of repairs that we didn't anticipate, when, you know, I guess a couple different things. Number one, when do you anticipate you'll know what kind of money we gotta spend on that stuff? Are you gonna come to us in the middle of the budget year? You know, how are we gonna program that in? Are those repairs gonna take priority over other pre-planned maintenance? I mean, I assume you don't have answers to all that yet, right?
The short answer is no, I don't. So again, I think that a lot of these repairs, we can probably get done, we can get them hammered out this year. Get those completed, so they'll be out of this budget cycle. And there may be some that we have to carry into next year, but again, unless it's a project that we gotta go to bid on, which I'm not foreseeing any yet. The only one is gonna be the Lake Alvin one so far, that's the big one. Unless we have other bridge projects on township roads that we haven't found yet. But I think we should be able to get most of them done. But if there is something that carries over, it might be minimal stuff. And again, a lot of that type stuff, just normal maintenance, I can absorb that into the budget, but we'll still be claiming it under FEMA, so we would get reimbursed.
Right.
You know, so,
All right, so basically stand by.
yes.
Because some of our roads that we were gonna repair this year, we haven't gotten to yet, correct?
For the most part, all of our projects are on course this year.
Yeah.
They're on target to be completed.
Okay.
Our paved project is almost done. They should be done this week sometime. Our micro seal project, that'll be happening the end of July, I believe is when they're talking about moving in. As far as other projects we have planned, for us doing, we have paving we can do. Well, we were gonna do some paving ourselves, but, with this here now, we'll be busy doing, repairs, just doing flood repairs, so. But, one thing I do wanna say, point out in the budget, again, I think I already mentioned it, but just remember that what I submitted to you is a 4-year average of actual costs, right? So when I look at the budget numbers for my full budget, because I still did my full budget, because I want you guys to know how much I'm gonna be looking at. I'm pushing probably on my full budget, probably $11 million.
How much?
11 million. Now, with that said, I do have 3 bridges that we're doing preservation projects on. That total project cost for those 3 preservation projects was it just over $5 million? And we'll be getting over 3.5 of that back.
Okay.
You know, so that's gonna kind of lopside my budget a little bit, you know. But again, a lot of those numbers, and I've been talking with Sherry, and how we're gonna do this is once I start getting project costs in, we can come in and we can do supplements and saying, well, this is how much we need to increase, because,
So if you say 11 million, actually 5 million of that is for 2 projects, right?
well, it'd be one project,
Or
yeah.
one project, but yet there will be reimbursement back.
Correct.
So the 11
Yes.
million is really not a figure that is accurate. I mean, it is.
When you end it, correct, but we still have to expend the money to get the reimbursement.
To get the money
right?
back.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions or comments on the road and budget fund?
I want to bring up something, Terry, just to talk about, because sometimes when we get out of here, we talk about these things. We have one-time money coming in now from the sale of that property that we had. We got $600,000. I'm not advocating that we spend $600,000 on a remodel or whatever, you know, it came in way over. But I'd like to take the temperature and see if we should use that one-time money and try to figure out a addition for you that is kind of within, we had original one at $500,000, didn't we? That was the first
Yeah.
projection. So I'd like to find out if we could use that one-time money that we never had and put that into plugging a hole that's we're gonna have to do for the future. It ain't, not gonna go away. It's not gonna shrink, you know, your department's gonna continue to grow. Why? Because there's people coming, you
On
know?
that note, Commissioner Schmidt, I would like to say that
Uh-oh.
I'm not, I'm not 100% sure how we even received that building. I believe it was given to us from the South Dakota Department of Transportation.
It was an agreement when we took over Highway 17. yeah.
So those $600,000 funds would have to go back to the Highway Department anyway.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
So it's not,
Oh, so I didn't violate, too bad.
No.
Is it, everybody clear on that? Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Floyd?
I mean, that, I guess to me, that would be a commissioner decision, the board decision to see if,
Okay.
if you guys are open and ready to continue on with that process, you know, so.
Okay.
Are we ready to move on?
Do you have any other questions on projects? I know, you should have the sheets here that I have everything listed out on.
Terry, a common question I get is, we got paving equipment, can we just pave our own parking lot? Is, common folk just come to me, even myself, I'm like, well, okay, yeah, let's ask Terry, so let's just get that out in the open.
All right, so, many years ago, whenever we did the first parking lot over there, we used our paver. It was kind of, it was a hassle. First of all, the number one thing we had go wrong was the machine is way too heavy to be sitting in there. And then by the time we start pulling with pulling it in a truck on there, dumping and paving, the paver was sinking into the gravel. I mean, it was hard, the gravel at the base was hard, but that machine is so heavy that it just sunk through and we had the truck had to pull the paver through, you know, and then the other item is it's such a short length. I mean, that thing isn't, normally for a parking lot paver, you'd use something a lot smaller machine, you know, and ours is more of a mainline highway paver.
Okay.
So, I mean, we can do it, but I would be afraid that we would have issues with it sinking again. And then trying to do our pulls, you dump one truck in there, you pull a little bit, try to get more in there because it's such a short area to work in. Again, our paver isn't set up for that.
So it's a straight line highway paver, and it's super heavy duty for the roads that tens of thousands of cars drive on. It's not built for these little tiny parking lot jobs where maybe you dump a bunch of hot mix in a bucket on the back of a truck, right?
Correct. So
Okay.
if we did, like the parking lot out the highway shop, we paved all that ourselves. You know, but that is, you know, you're looking 800-foot long stretches.
Right.
You know, and you're wide open. You know, you don't have buildings blocking you here or anything trying to get you, you know, we're wide open. I mean, so it can be done with it, but that is extremely small to
Okay.
use our paver.
What, would it be, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but just from, you know, you got a lot of experience. Would you all have all the, you know, if we wanted to rent the equipment and do it ourselves? Is that even a remote possibility or not?
The one thing with renting a smaller paver is the controls. The controls would be different than what we have, you know, so we would be struggling, you know, I mean, it's, when you're laying asphalt, you got one opportunity. I mean, granted, you got a little time to work with it, but if you screw up on you want to go up and instead you go down, I mean, yeah, you can fill it in or you can take it off, but it kind of makes a mess, you know. So if you don't know what the machine is or how it operates, the operations of the machine, I mean, if you're not familiar with it and know how that machine is gonna react, I mean, you could leave some holes, you could leave some humps.
All right.
You know, I mean, to me, I think that's gonna be the biggest thing, and I know I did reach out, I think it was earlier this year when Mr. Rasmussen asked us about that, or maybe it was last year, to one of our vendors, and it would be a struggle to find a paver to rent around here, you know, so.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any
Are
other
we
questions?
ready to move on to another?
Nope, good. All right. Thank you.
Okay. Paul, what's the next one?
We can do it airport.
Okay. Dave Myers, we'll go ahead. Airport. I believe that's on page 42.
Good morning,
Back it anyway,
Commissioner.
I'm not sure.
I got it.
Is it 42 or not?
I don't have that one.
We don't have
Okay.
page numbers.
We don't have the pages in the book here.
Okay.
But I got,
Yeah, the one
I
we
got
have.
David's looking right here.
I have these down here, see, that we got last week.
You've been
In
studying.
your book, it's the last.
I've been studying it.
The last 2 pages are the budget,
Yeah.
and then it's the second, it goes 4-H, airport, buildings,
Yep.
highway,
Gotcha.
in terms of the, words.
Okay,
So-
whenever you're
yeah.
ready, Dave.
Good morning. Good morning. As the airport continues to grow with projects and improvements to our airport, there's costs. Currently, the south ramp is probably our next project. And then also the new terminal building, which last Thursday, I presented out at the South Dakota Aeronautics Commission about the terminal building. So that went favorably. And then also the project for the south ramp got approved by the state. So we're getting closer to start with that. So those numbers are not accurate, but they're fairly close what the bids came in with so forth. Really don't have a really accurate bid on the terminal building, but as the next meeting in July happens, I think we'll be really closer to what's gonna happen if they're gonna approve that from Senate Bill 144. And just other things that have came up with the airport. This is all new to me, to be honest with you, the budget process and expenses that I've incurred and so forth like that, and things just have generated because of unforeseen things such as the current FBO office has sewer issues, and with all this rainfall and things like that, it's just turned into a mess, and with our runway lights having issues and so forth like that, so. That's kind of what we put together, and if you have questions.
Dave, what's your sales pitch on that shared position that was taken out of your proposed budget? At least it looks to me like it was taken out.
It was taken out. I believe I can manage the summer operations. Sometimes it gets a little tight in the winter with snow removal if aircraft want to depart the airport. But John has been willing, when they get their stuff done around here, they'll send someone up there to help me. And usually we can get it cleared off if I start like 4 or 5 in the morning. It's pretty well done by 11:30, 12 by lunchtime, so.
So that's resolved itself and you're not asking for that anymore?
As of now, we're not, so.
All right, thank you.
Your capital outlay budget, is that primarily the south ramp then?
For airport improvements, where it says capital outlay, that's probably both with, if we do get approved for the terminal building and the south ramp.
Dave, It looks to me like you're looking for 14 grand for a snow plow, because basically it's too tough to share between Canton and T. Is that the long and short of it?
Correct. I do have a new vehicle, but it doesn't have a snowplow for this current year. So I think if it was approved, we'd get something started in January, so that would help out a lot also. There is a tractor up there with a plow in front of it that I can use to do the runway and the taxiway, but getting around close to the hangars is sometimes difficult with that. But I can manage with the tractor through probably the end of this year, then with help with John's team, so.
Hangar rent of 19,000, that is what we pay or what we receive?
Receive from probably where Legacy Aviation is, that building right there. That's part of that. That's income that the county does receive.
I mean,
Any other?
Yeah, as far as airports go, I mean, like commercial, you talk about commercial airports, and normally airplanes that land there are, they pay a fee to the airport. That's basically how most airports sustain themselves. When it comes to us, we're probably more of like a public benefit, if you will. It's kind of like building a public park, right? People don't pay to go use the park, do they? Well, so just following my analogy here, the only income that the airport is really generating is land leases, hangar rent, and then to a smaller extent, this category called airport operations, right? I mean, at the end of the day, we're really kind of limited on how much income we can bring in, right?
Correct. Sometimes when people come in, they'll buy fuel, which helps a little bit. But other than that, it's very minimal if people do fly in to the airport there.
Did we get all of that resolved with the fuel tanks up there and taking that over from Legacy and
I think
all
that's
that?
going to happen in executive today.
Oh. Okay. All right. Well, so I'll take that as a no. Okay.
Okay. I think that's it. What areas do we have left to cover?
Thank you.
For today? Paul, have we addressed all of the 4-H?
We'll have John start talking about buildings. We'll get Wendy on the phone here in about 9 minutes to finish up some of part of the things that John's gonna be talking about is a building project, that was out at 4-H, but Wendy, had a youth program today, that was part of the, flooding. So we'll get her on the phone here in about 9 minutes when that's over. For now, we'll let we can have John talk about some of his other stuff, and then we'll kind of combine the end of buildings for the 4-H with, Wendy's part.
Okay. Let's see. Your page 9, I think it was.
John Rambo. Morning, John.
Good morning.
Okay.
Okay. Government buildings, correct?
Correct.
All right, we're on the right page. Go ahead.
So you guys opened up the can of worms since he got to go before me, but I was gonna bring up the additional person I requested for next year. When I looked at doing it, I definitely have a need for that person. That's why I visited with Dave, and one of my grumblings, or what you would call it, is every time that I participate at the airport, none of that cost goes back to the airport. And it's fair amount for a snow event. It typically does require us to aid him to do snow events. We're there periodically for other things, trimming trees, trimming some grass for him as needed. You remember, as his position grows, it's new, and he becomes more and more busy, he is the critical maintenance for the airport. He sits in a plow for every snow event. He sits on a lawnmower every day or multiple times a day. And as his job gets busier, he's finding it harder to do that. So can it be put off a year for this position? Maybe, but it's getting harder to do that, and I'm absorbing that. And our thought was that we were gonna do the joint position is then it correctly reflects some cost back to the airport for that labor, and not just coming directly out of my budget, because currently, I absorb that in my budget, and nobody really would see that as an airport cost. So that's why I was looking at doing a joint shared position. But to go back to just my basic needs, my thinking is with the new building being constructed, with the potential of an 18-month build time, I'm sure that's delayed, and we're probably looking at beyond that to 24-month easily, or now with this wet stuff. But I will need more help. It might be a sell to you guys, but I will need more help to maintain that additional facility. And my thinking was if I could bring on this maintenance position next year, wouldn't have to be January 1st, but if I could bring it on next year, I could start the growth of my department to start meeting those needs and getting that person trained on everything else we do. So again, one that got taken out of my budget, I wasn't real happy with it, but could I struggle through another year without the position? Well, of course, I'll find a way to get through the year. I won't lie to you, it'll be painful. And I'll give you an example of what just happened this weekend. I had one guy on vacation, and so that left 2 maintenance people. Well, guess what? We had to run 24/7 for about 3 days. Some of that time, we both, to go home and rest, got rained out of the building. So that's where dispatch did fill in. Thursday night, dispatch saved us. I'm not gonna lie to you, I think, I wrote his down, what's his name, Scott, I forget his last name, Johnson maybe? In dispatch, he did a lot of maintenance Thursday night, because we couldn't get back in town. Now, that's an abnormal event, I realize that. But then you start talking about the fact that a lot of what building and maintenance does requires 2 people. If I'm gonna go move a desk unit, I can't do it by myself. I've done it occasionally by myself. But as stuff grows and as we get busier, you gotta dedicate 2 people to a lot of different jobs.
So, so you still want that in?
I
The
would prefer
position?
it in.
Do you want it shared, or do you want that person to be just your employee?
So for my conversations there was some feedback, and I'm not sure from where, that ultimately that position should just belong to me and I just absorb potentially the grounds maintenance at the airport. I'm all for that, if that's the way it plays out, and maybe that's the way we need to look at doing a restructuring of my department.
So which commissioner is your liaison?
I am.
So can you just share with the rest of the commission how it came that this was removed from your budget request before it came in front of the board? Like, I'm just trying to figure out, it's on, you're still asking for it, but it's not on there.
To be honest, I was on vacation when my budget was finalized and everything, and when I came back from vacation, I found that there was some changes. I don't know exactly how it was played out, so.
It's not finalized, though, so.
No, but I mean, what I submitted to present today was modified while I was gone, and the budget process, obviously with the commission office now, is a new structure and a new way of operating, and I kind of took it that maybe this is just how it works, so I didn't know.
Commissioner Aaron's, were you not supporting this position?
Yeah, I've got some concerns with it. I wanted to have more discussion about whether or not, how many hours are gonna be spent up there and how that's gonna work. We've got John Hanson retiring, and then his position will have to be backfilled by another person, but most likely reclassified down because nobody has John's experience. And he was already in at a director level anyway. So we'll backfill John's position. And then John was already doing some work up at the airport occasionally, right? And what John Rombo here is talking about is wanting to take the person who will become John Hansen's replacement, and he wants to reclassify that into somebody who does some more HVAC, preventive maintenance, and those types of things, which, you know, I guess we'll have to, maybe, I agree with some of that, but then the question becomes, can some of that person's time be spent up at the airport like John Hansen's time was, thereby alleviating us at this point in time from needing to do what I call the new position, which would be the 75-25 position, right? That was my thinking.
I guess, and I'm just bringing it up, I mean, I guess I would like to see that put in his budget. And I know with the building of this new courthouse, John's gonna have to be up there, he's gonna have to understand what's going on from the ground up, and so I think he's gonna be spending a lot of time there. And I feel almost like his position is moving more into an administrative type position as opposed to hands-on labor, trying to, you know, fill all the potholes, so to speak, with these buildings himself. So I'd like to see it in there. I mean, I would still want it to come before the board when you were looking at advertise, you know, I mean, I want there to be a need. I just don't want him to come in and say, hey, I really need this, like I think he's telling us now, and then it's not in the budget.
I make a recommendation also as not to split employees. The accounting for splitting employees over funds is a pain.
Yeah, I don't want to see it
So
split
it's building and
either.
grounds, it should be under you, in my opinion.
So you're saying we would replace John Hanson with someone and then hire an additional person?
Correct.
Yep.
And that's what the request is. You're gonna reclassify John Hanson's position to do more of the stuff, so we don't have to hire contractors to do it.
Correct.
But then you need another position so that you can do what you actually are needing to be doing.
Correct. This, this position that will replace John Hanson, I am hoping it'll have a cost savings. I definitely would like to see that. I totally expect that to happen. So, in an example of that last night is after a busy weekend, it got hot and humid yesterday and the HVAC crashed last night. So guess who came over last night to get everything running again? Me, right? Well, an HVAC guy would have a better understanding of that than me. You know, I've learned a lot since I've been here on that HVAC stuff. But this would be a guy that would probably been on top of what was going on and maybe help me resolve some of this stuff that's crashing it. I totally anticipated the potential of it happening because historically, this courthouse crashes when the heat index gets up near 100. So we were lucky because it didn't crash until 5 o'clock at night and the building was closed. And so the only people that would have started noticing it was dispatch, and I'd already known about it, so I resolved it before they even probably picked up on it. So the budget was, in my opinion, because of John's pay scale that he's had, the budget authority was there to make this a little higher classified position to justify more of a specialist for that type of thing. And that's why I would like to reclassify that position to like more of a senior building maintenance person that's more responsible for HVAC stuff. It's still, I anticipate that being potentially a $10,000 a year cost change, a benefit to the county to lower it because, because of the level of John's pay because he was a department head and his longevity here. So again, will this person be helping do all that stuff? Will this person be running a shovel? Yes, I'll have to have this person running a shovel as well. But when there is a HVAC problem, which happens a lot during a snow event, then this person will be focused on that. And then I'll have potentially two people be sitting in a plow.
You know, we received very little snow
Right.
in 2024 so far. We didn't
Right.
have much snow. And
Correct.
if you were busy now, I can't imagine what it'd be if we had a typical normal winter with normal snowfall, because,
2 winters ago, I was barely kept my nose out of the water. It was terrible.
We had a lot of cold this year, but we didn't really have that much snow.
And if you can remember, to handle the airport's needs, we spent probably $15,000 to $20,000 in contractor expenses.
You know, we had an unusually warm March. You know, you usually get a snowstorm or two during March, and that never developed.
Right. So I've often said, I've got some 2 or 3 bigger dilemmas. One of the things is I'm trying to do grounds maintenance at multiple facilities with very few people, and they all got to get done in a quick time. Can that be handled by contractors? Maybe, but it's just getting so hard to get a contractor to even consider it.
Well, that's kind of a panacea. Contractors don't want that one big job. But John, basically you have 3 functions. You're at the airport, you're here, and you're at the 4-H grounds.
Correct.
You can't split yourself 3 ways. So when Commissioner Landine said, we need to put a new employee in here, we need to put a new employee in here. We can dance around this all day long. But the need is not going to go away. In fact, it probably will increase because you're going to have more activity at your 4-H grounds because of the growth that they've experienced and the buildings over there. The airport is now under management, and I anticipate you're going to have more planes coming in because you have a better administration going on, you have a better all approach to that, and the need we have a new building coming on board. So you got that building and this building. So you got 4 areas to cover. So I'm writing down notes, and I don't know how you're gonna try to cover that unless you wanna spend 20-some hours a day on this whole thing, and we'll burn you out. And that's not the point of having this job. And your job is try to administrate this department, and yet you're doing the work and the administration. And that's not a criticism, but that's not good business. That's not good management.
Well, if we can eliminate some of the overtime wages, I mean, you look at the overtime wages there.
I don't
Right.
think there's a matter of question. Put it in.
Is there some consensus that we should put that back in right now?
I'm in favor.
I'm in favor of it.
Think, Joel?
I'm generally opposed to adding new FTEs at this time. So we got too big of a budget deficit right now.
Well, that might be true, but at the same time, man, I understand
Do you
that
need
we
formal
can't split
motion?
him
So
much
Joe,
more.
when we increased the employees in 911 center, it actually cut down the overtime, so we saved significantly on the overtime. If you don't have the employee, they'll have the overtime.
Yeah, I get that. We did that with the sheriff's department too. I guess what I'd like to see is what is the overtime and what were the numbers and what were the cost savings, and do the cost savings exceed the cost of a new employee? I mean, we could say here and say we saved money. I agree with you. I don't dispute that, but how much? And does it justify, does the actual analysis, when you subtract cost minus savings, what, is it $1 or is it 100,000? That's the kind of information I'd like to see to be able to make that decision. Because I don't disagree with the fact that adding new employees cuts down on overtime. It's just to what extent?
Do they pay for themselves?
Yeah.
Well, and I mean, you can't expect these employees to work 50, 60 hours a week either if the situation calls for it. So I'm looking at employee burnout, I'm looking at getting rid of the overtime. So I'm asking, we're not making motions on this today, obviously, but do I have the consensus of 2 other commissioners to add that position back in?
Well, from my
I
vantage
think
point,
we're
I've
gonna, I
explained
think
this.
we're gonna have to do it. I hate adding full-time employees too. But I do agree that
Poly, track and all this? Okay.
How much overtime is being used right now, John?
$20,089.73.
So overtime itself wouldn't pay for this position. I can promise you that right now. But on quite a bit of my staff take it as comp time as well. And I'm not sure those numbers are probably played into there, they might be, but the comp time ultimately somewhat hurts me because they're gonna be gone at some point anyway. And we're struggling, so that's, you know, when, like John's been comping a lot of his time. He's getting ready to retire but I feel his absence when he's gone because when John's gone, I definitely have to step in and fill in that second person's shoes to accomplish stuff. But those headaches are getting worse and worse. So if it didn't pay for it this year, it may pay for that position next year, is what I'm saying. And I do have to apologize to you, Joe. I was hoping to talk to you about this one-on-one, and I wasn't even sure if I was bringing it up today, to be honest, because I was gonna maybe just
Had you not talked to him, Commissioner Aaron's about it?
not directly about this position being cut, no. So, again,
So Commissioner Aaron's, did you take direction to take that out of the budget?
What did we do? Well, I don't exactly remember.
Okay.
I mean, look, at the end of the day, it looks like I'm outnumbered. So if you want the position, add the position. All I want is transparency for the public. Like, I got the answer to my question, which is overtime won't pay for the position itself.
correct.
I think, that's the big deal. So if you want to add these positions in, you're going to do so. There's going to be increased cost. That's going to have an effect on all other departments as well. That's my whole point. It's like baking a cake, right? We got to try to figure out how it's going to work. So, I mean, at the end of the day, if we want more people, we're going to have to pay for them. And if you got the votes on the commission, you got the votes.
John, do you have, if you're covering 4 areas, how do you anticipate the dissemination of your time? Maybe you can't answer that, but just thinking through your job, and primarily it's here, or at the airport, or at the 4-H grounds, or at the new building. How are you going to try to cover that from an administration standpoint and the utilization of whatever staff you have?
Well, I will tell you.
It's going to be a challenge.
It is a challenge, but I will tell you, since Dave has been here at the airport, that has been giving me a breath because he does take a lot of those headaches. We talk probably, multiple times a week to discuss stuff, but he definitely handles a lot of those headaches and it just bounces things past me. So that's definitely taken one of the 3 things heavily off my plate. I probably should be honestly focused more on the new build than I have been, the new courthouse, and I hope to be more actively involved as that starts going up to hopefully maybe catch some of this stuff that happens that we end up having to deal with at a later date. And I'll back up, we're forgetting a building. The highway shop has become a big burden to me as of lately. So I totally agreed with Terry and Jared when I stepped in to take over the maintenance side of that because some stuff wasn't getting caught. But they have had a lot of struggles as of late. I mean, you're gonna hear us coming up with some pretty big expenditures here in the next meeting or 2 because we've got major issues going on out there. So I'm trying to get numbers on that. That's where a lot of my time is spent talking to contractors, trying to get 3 quotes. And I'm telling you, that takes a lot to my time. So my job is truly becoming more and more administrative. Honestly, it's been very administrative until this flood event. And of course, I had to step back in and become a basic maintenance worker because I just needed to be here.
We got the fire suppression system, just so folks know, the fire suppression pump.
Right, so we lost, yeah, we need to invest some money in a new fire suppression pump out there, because it got flooded and it's not as a result of this rain event, unfortunately. It's a result of something malfunctioning and flooding the system. So I'm waiting for a third advice on how to do it. We're gonna try to, there was some design issues, we believe, that caused this, but I don't know how to point fingers back to the engineering company. I've asked the question to them, Of course, they're kind of dodging me a little bit, and one of their typical answers is, well, the guy that designed it no longer works for us. I got ideas how to move forward, but it's, without engineering support, which, as you all know, if I reach out to a different engineering company, it's gonna cost us money. So my plan is I think this last company has a good idea how to move forward, but I have not seen their number yet, so.
John, I don't wanna cut you off necessarily, but I've gotta leave at noon, and I know we have to have an executive session yet, so, can you just hone in on these other items that were removed? Did you agree to their removal, or what was your?
Well, so the Fairground Restroom Project, Joel and I did talk about this. I did not have that in my mind for the original, request for this year, and I thought from after we met, you were wanting me to give a number, but that might have been my mistake. I did get a number, that's the cheapest dumbed down version, and I am more than willing to postpone that for a year and try to get more research. What I'd like to move forward with is doing a federal storm shelter, which I'll have to work with Harold on. I do think, I think one of the things that excited me about putting it in my budget, it's $102,000 right now. I do think that will be more expensive because we'll have a cost share on that, but we'll have a lot better structure if we do move that direction. But
Yeah,
so,
John and I did talk about it. What I told John is, get a number so that we at least, not necessarily to put into this year's budget, but get a number so that this commission starts to develop a much larger picture of what things are gonna look like financially. Essentially, and I think I used this term when I talked to John, it's a forcing function to create a capital improvement plan out there.
right, and
It doesn't mean we're doing it this year, and I don't know what this whole deal is about who removed it, why removed it. That's not the issue. The issue is what's gonna be built out there, how much is it gonna cost, and when is it gonna be built? Can it be built this year? Does it have to be next year? Do we have the money this year? Does it need to be put in year 3 or year 5? That's really what we're trying to figure out. And the other issue is, it's like the storm shelter option was what we were also talking about, because then you got the possibility of maybe tapping into some federal funds
right.
to offset the cost of that. Because the other issue we're gonna have out there is bathrooms. And are we gonna tap into a septic tank, or are we just gonna create a pit that gets, for lack of a better term, a permanent porta potty? And do you just suck it out, or, because this year we're gonna end up doing porta potties again this year.
For sure. We have to come up with a long-term solution for a restroom facility out there, whether it's a storm shelter or not. The number that I put on my budget, because I thought that I understood that when he said throw a number together, I thought he wanted me to add it. That was my mistake. That number, $102,000, was to include the septic system, which is, the federal grant's not gonna pay for a septic system. They're gonna pay for a building. So that $30,000 or $25,000, whatever it costs for a mound system for that size, I've been hearing kind of both numbers, will ultimately have to come out of our budget. And so the structure I put in here was just one of those school governor's houses, and basically the cost of moving it there, putting on a foundation and plumbing it. So that by no means is that it's not a 30-year plan, but building. I mean, that would be, there's a timeline on how long that type of structure would last, but it would get us by for 10, 15, 20 years, The next things then, just moving down, is that, the things that were removed were my skid steer loader and the new V-plow. I did not have this conversation with Joel on that. Again, my thinking there is when we get the new structure built, there's gonna be costs, and I was trying to offset having a huge lump sum cost. Because when I look at my snow removal setup, I've got the pickup plows, and I can handle a lot with that. But this new parking lot is gonna be a challenge to do with a pickup plow. A skid steer and a V-plow are ideally the best piece of equipment. When it comes to Dave's maintenance, at the airport, honestly, the pickup plow is great because it pushes a lot of snow and it gets it off the runway of long ways, because you get some speed, much faster speed than the tractor. A skid steer in a lot of sense would be better there also. So Dave and I will have that conversation when the day comes that we replace that equipment, hopefully off of federal FFA monies or FAA monies. But that's, again, I'm bringing in years and years of experience doing snow removal in parking lots and streets and stuff and not public streets. So I definitely know that for me to doing snow removal, a skid steer plow would be good there too. But I absolutely know that it would be the best piece of equipment for this new building that was built.
So did you take it off then, or,
I did not.
okay, and then,
And again, can we kick that can down the road? Yes, we can. Because I don't necessarily need it for any projects for next year, but can I use it? It will be available for me to use it. But I was trying to push that cost into this in 2025's budget, so we didn't absorb it all in 2026.
well, I know we took off the parking lot thing, that failed, right? So you've got it back in your budget?
I thought the parking lot thing was subject to being rebid for next year. That's why that has not been
Weren't we
removed.
looking for costs again?
Well, he's got 291,000 in here for a cost, and
That was the estimated cost from the engineer, and I thought it just wasn't going to go through this year, but was subject to be put on for next year.
I don't know that it's gonna go through until this new courthouse is up and running. And we see that whether we have a need for it or not, that's a lot of money to spend on a pad of asphalt.
That's.
Okay, but you would need the skid steer if we were gonna do it. Or do you need
No,
the
the skid steer is
V-plow?
gonna be for the new courthouse facility, the new justice center.
Okay, not for this
Correct.
off-street
No.
over here. Gotcha.
I can do this with a pickup.
Okay.
The logic is, John would like to have a skid steer now today, because he can use it. But the reason for pushing it down one more fiscal year is because then that gives breathing room to purchase other items in the
Correct.
interim. And then when we have the new courthouse, then it becomes a need as opposed to a want.
Correct.
Right.
And
Okay.
then that's where John and I have talked about, will there need to be a new custodial employee in 26, sometime in there? However you want to phase that in. But today, some of these things, at least in my mind, are needs, but they will be converted wants, but they will be converted into needs eventually when we trip that trigger of opening that facility.
Correct.
And I think John's whole point is, and I get it, and this is where maybe he and I diverge a little bit, is he doesn't want the bigger lump sum in 26. I think it's the same lump sum though this year.
Well, when I first put this together, at that time, I truly was hoping that the parking lot project would go through this year,
Yeah.
And so the sticker shock for my whole budget is that parking lot project. I'm not gonna lie to you, it is, it's huge. But I was truly hoping that maybe that would get through this year. And I didn't know how we would do it this year, but I was hoping that would happen.
And it's good that you put that stuff in there, because it forces us to have these conversations. And really what it does is, again, I'm just gonna, reiterate this, it forces a discussion about a capital improvement plan, really. Because even though it falls into your budget per se, there is another way of doing a budget. And that is when you do capital improvement projects, that lands in a whole nother category that no longer belongs to, per se, buildings and grounds necessarily. I mean, it could be a whole new budget category for the county overall, so. Because it's part of the county campus, if you will.
And I am working on that list for capital improvement stuff. I wasn't necessarily thinking in the minds of equipment, but more projects, but
Yeah.
Anything else you wanted to present this morning, John?
everything else that went through, I'd be awesome, so.
Okay.
Okay.
Commissioner, Mr. Chairman,
Yep.
I would make a request that we do our executive session and then take Wendy's budget up later. Because I don't see anything that was taken out, and, I mean, she's very explanatory in her letter, but
Okay.
if we could do that, that would be great before I have to leave.
Is that okay with the rest of the commission?
It's okay.
All right, then I'll ask for a motion that we will go into executive session under item 1, which I believe,
Would be, yeah, I would move to go into
yes,
SDCL
discussion
1.
of qualification, competence, performance, character, and fitness of a public employer, employee, so on.
As well as SDCL 125-2 sub 3, I would ask for as well.
Okay, we have, would you like to make that a motion?
Yes, please.
And a second by Schmidt. Any discussion? Okay, no public input, so go ahead, call the roll.
Commissioner Aaron's,
Yes.
Commissioner Landine.
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Gibbon.
Yes. Session, motion by Schmidt, a second.
Second.
Aaron's, discussion, none, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Aaron's,
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Gibbon.
Yes. And now, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second by Aaron's and Schmidt. Any discussion? None, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Aaron's,
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Gibbon.
Yes, we are adjourned.